Howdy, Billy Kemper. How are you, sir? Welcome to the ASC. A little going virtual this year, but we don't mind. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Good to see your face. It's been a while, and
Yeah.
yeah, stoked to chat, talk story.
There's so much to cover. We'll get into, obviously, a little bit of talk of Jaws, but I want to get into kind of the Morocco and kind of the road to recovery. I know it's not an easy thing. I think you're just fresh coming out of PT today.
Yeah, it's man, the last 6 months, I never in a million years would have told myself that I would have went through what I have and just met the people that I have, and also gained the knowledge. It's been an incredible ride. As much as getting injured really sucks. There's positives that come with it. And I think that's what I've kind of learned I'm taking on with this is like, no matter how dark things can be, it's like there's always things that you can take in and bring along with you that you can learn from, and just make sure you don't go down those roads again. And yeah, man, it's been a wild ride. I'm actually I'm about to jump into the Mamba Sports Academy for an hour long little physical therapy, strength and conditioning. I'm wrapping up basically 6 months of 7 days a week, four times a day, physical therapy, training, water work, breath work for my lungs, just all different things I've been running my body through the last 6 months here in California. So heading home on Friday to start getting ready for winter.
I'm sure, yeah, we look forward to all the footage that's going to be coming out this winter. Talk about, for those that aren't familiar with the injury, and maybe just, I mean, because we see you as one part manimal, one part cyborg, but even guys like you can, you can take a beating. So tell us kind of what happened and just the kind of the pain and what you had to go through.
Well, I went on a trip right after the Vulcan Pipe Pro in the middle of February down to Northern Africa and Morocco, and unbelievable trip. I was with two of my best friends, Luke Davis and Koa Smith. Met up with a local legend, Jerome, who completely took us in as family, gave us the best trip ever. And one of those don't say one more wave or this will be my last wave. Last day of the trip, 9.5 hours in the water. Told everyone, oh, I'm gonna get one more. And yeah, I fell in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's kind of all there is to it. It wasn't the biggest, scariest wave in the world, but it wasn't the smallest. And I hit a rock on the right side of my body, which kind of collapsed my right lung, broke my pelvis in half, basically from the top right plate all the way down into my hip joint. It snapped completely off and tore my quad muscle off my femur. It wasn't a tear, it was like more of a contusion. And then tore my ACL, MCL, and meniscus all basically in half, which led to a pretty heavy reconstructive surgery, 5 stem cell treatments. Yeah, it's been a wild ride, but I'm still here. I'm still smiling, and I'm back in the water, so I have nothing to complain about right now.
No, your resilience is inspiring for sure, and that kind of leads us to the the WSL docuseries. It's going to be chronicling like everything you're going through. It's not an easy journey, and I always say as fans we just take it for granted. We think you're going to come back, but talk about some of the things. You touched on it a little bit, but in terms of the therapy, and then there's the emotional, the mental side of it as well.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I never ever would have thought that I'd be making a road to recovery kind of documentary thing to, not really for myself, but for others, for the future, to get inspired and be motivated when times are tough. And the story that I'm trying to tell is that it's not just about coming back from an injury. It could be a loss of somebody in your family. It could be coming out of drug addiction or abuse, or just dealing with depression. There's so many different sides of battling your performance and peak level in the middle of a career with all these other obstacles that you kind of have to steer straight from. And for me, it was I've had a couple close, the people in my life have passed, and that going into this injury, I was that kid on a bed who was just like questioning everything 6 months ago. If you would have seen me on February 30th, you would have questioned, probably talking to me even closely remotely about returning to surfing. And I really just, there's nothing from the surf world that really gave me that inspiration or motivation. And some of like my biggest peers and most respected surfers in the entire community just have went through crazy injuries, you know, ACL tears, broken femurs, you know, the list goes on. And there's that, no one's really documented it and shown that anything is possible, and that, you know, you work hard enough, you can come back and be better than you were previously. So that being said, really close friend of mine, Mark McMorris, had this documentary, and I watched it when I was in the hospital the night after I had my pelvis put back together, and it brought tears to my eyes. But most importantly, it brought me so much hope, and it was the first time since, like, you know, this was about 8 days after the injury. After I had been medevaced back to the United States, I was laying in this hospital in Los Angeles watching this documentary, and it was the first time I thought about surfing since injury. And it was like 8 days, and for me, you know, I can't even tell you a day in my life I haven't thought about surfing. It's what runs through my veins. So just having somebody give me this little spark of motivation was crazy, and that kind of led me into, let's do a documentary and let's show people what it's like. Let's show the highs, let's show the lows, let's, you know, show what it's like balancing a family in between it, and give people who aren't, you know, I'm not saying are on this level, but just people who aren't professional surfers, because it's not just surfing, it's any kind of person in the world, whether you're working a 9 to 5 or you're playing on a field or a track. It's for the world, and I want to open up and I want to share that as best as I can.
And we want to remind all the viewers watching, it's going to drop 2021 in January, correct?
Yes, it
Okay,
is.
on WSL. On top of that, I see that you've been hooking up with Gabby and Laird. Are you doing a little XPT as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Secretly, actually, last summer I studied their XPT course and did their coaching certification class, and I was certified as a coach. I mean, you know me, I grew up in the water. I'm a free diver. I love training. Obviously, it's part of my lifestyle. And, you know, what better training can you prep yourself for surfing big waves than training with big weights under crazy amounts of pressure and stress underwater? It's very relatable, of just kind of that kill or be killed mentality of keeping your heart rate down at like a real, you know, serious situation. And yeah, Gabby and Laird, they actually kind of took the mom and dad role during this injury. When I was injured, Laird was down at Nazare and Gabby was here in LA. And once they got word of it, I got calls on both sides. And Gabby, it was pretty cool. I remember her saying, like, "Hey, if you're feeling like I'm being too much of a mom, you can tell me to back off, but I need to help you." And I was like, "Hey, I'm fine with it." And I wrote, "Can I call you mom?" And yeah, she's just, that family is, if you think of the word like motivating or inspiring, you should see Gabby and Laird's face. Like, it is incredible what those two have done, from Olympic gold medals to pioneering big wave surfing to going public with like one of the, I don't know, #1 coffee creamer superfood brand in the nation. Like, what else can you ask for? It's incredible what they do, and they've taken me in. And part of the reason why I've came back so fast, I mean, a huge part is what they've invested into me. You know, it's been unbelievable, the amount of knowledge and practices and trainings they've ran me through. It's yeah, I gotta definitely tilt my hat to them.
It's it goes without saying you've had a crazy year, but on top of it sounds like you were obviously in a bit of the doldrums. You know, it took a while to kind of climb back and find that positivity. How much did it mean getting the 2020 Rider of the Year award in the midst of all this?
That meant so much to me. More importantly, that wave. You know, that wave. I don't care what kind of surfer you are. It's like, I can say it without like looking at it if it wasn't me. It's like, that's the wave every surfer in the world would dream of riding and just making. It's that picture perfect Jaws wave, and to ride a barrel like that deep on a board that big on a wave that size, it it was so overcoming for me, all the obstacles, everything I've went through, you know, every wave I've caught my entire life was like a lead up to that. So,
Yeah.
such a good time for me. It brought a lot of warmth, just accepting that award and kind of being put back on the spotlight after dealing with this injury and just really having to bite down and work while no one else is watching and just kind of be self-motivated. It lifted me up and really kind of, it warmed me up for this winter, and really gave me the mindset of like, I'm going to surf Jaws this winter.
Yeah, put a little wind in your sail, I can imagine.
Yeah.
You've always been really good at kind of just conveying how much work, you mentioned just how much work it takes to get to that point of surfing a wave like that, and it's all the waves that lead up to that, but you've always been really good at letting people know how much preparation you put in. Maybe you could maybe speak to that a little bit of, like, people kind of take it for granted where they just see you guys charging big waves, but there's so much work, training, you know, the mental stuff, the deep water training. Talk about everything you put into it.
Yeah. I mean, you could vouch and you understand this too. I wasn't like, you know, your typical blonde-haired, blue-eyed, you know, national champ, NSSA nationals making six figures before I was 18. Like that, those were pipe dreams. Like it was, you know, when I did make the podium in those amateur young events, I was stoked, but I didn't have the big sponsors and platforms that a lot of these kids did. And it didn't come easy, but I would never, ever ask for it in a different way. You know, I worked really hard to just get to where I'm at. And it wasn't to make a living or win contests or win awards. It was because I truly loved it and I found where I belong and I know what I want to do. I love competing and I love heavy waves. Whether it's, you know, 2 to 4 foot barrels in, you know, big turns, or if it's, you know, 60 to 80 foot hold on for dear life at Jaws. I just love competing and I love surfing in really good big waves. And I'm just very proud that I got the respect that I truly feel like I deserved from the surfing community, from the companies. And um, yeah, you know, it's a lot of people see the celebrations. And for me, the celebrations are the waves. Like that's celebrating. When I get to go out to Jaws and get the wave of my life, like that's my version of celebrating. It's like all the stuff I do leading up to that is the work, is what I do for a living. So I look at it as like every time I step into a gym, it's like I'm clocking in hours to how I'm going to win and how I'm going to celebrate. So that's kind of made change my mentality of just how I live my life. You know, I take my time very seriously and I dissect it the way I prep my body, whether it's, you know, training in pools, training in gyms, or just practicing surfing. You know, I don't, you know, I think about the little things when I'm in the water. And at the same time, I'm also understanding that I'm very grateful and I love Mother Nature, and surfing it's who I am. It makes me happy and it makes me keep pushing forward every morning when I wake up.
It's always been enjoyable watching you, especially at Jaws, but I mean on all big waves, but when Jaws in particular, you just have this calm and collected feel. I don't know that you exude. I was wondering, was there a moment where you started to see the wave differently there, where you were comfortable with pushing it a little bit farther and going for barrels of consequence on a wave that size? You know what I mean? Where you start to see it through a different lens because you've spent so much time out there. Was there a moment you can remember where you started to see the possibilities?
Yeah, that moment, I think I was like 6 or 7 years old and I was on the cliff. And anyone who's not familiar with Jaws, it's it breaks off of a big valley on the northeast shore of Maui, and it's about, I don't know, a few 100-foot cliff down to the ocean. And it kind of gives you the stadium feel, like almost like, you know, you're at the opposite end of a baseball field, like looking down and across at the home plate or wherever where the batter's at. And I just remember being like this kid in a stadium watching Laird and Double D and Dave Kalama and Brian Kealana, like, you know, all these heavy hitters out there. And those guys to me were like the Babe Ruths or, you know, Superman. Like I literally looked up to them as like action figures. And I was like, I'm going to do that one day. I don't care about anything else. Like that's where I belong and that's what I want to do. And I just, yeah, you know, it's always lived in the back of my head. You know, I used to draw pictures of Jaws when I was a kid, And my dad and my mom were just like, yeah, right. Like, no chance. That's never going to happen. And, fast forward 20 years and kind of placed me right where I belong. And it's, I lost my mom and I also lost my brother. And I know that, they're out there with me every time I surf out there. It's my backyard. It's where I was born and raised. And something happens when I hit the water out there that, I don't know, maybe it's all the visualizing and just manifesting certain things and believing that, you can work with Mother Nature and that you do have angels above you. It's crazy as it sounds, like that's truly how I feel when I'm out there. I feel really comfortable and I feel like I belong out there. And that's the one thing that kind of always brings me back is like, there's never doubts and there's never this miscommunication of like, do I want it? Or like, is it my day? Like, it's always like a consistent thing that it pushes me forward. Like, no, you want more, I want like, it's an addiction. It's a relationship that I can't get enough of. And, I think everyone knows that by now. It's kind of become a little obsessive, and I love the place more than anywhere in the world.
No, it's your confidence and drive is well apparent. We can see it, especially during the contests. Speaking of that, I know you found the podium more than once. I think three times out there, if I'm counting correctly. 4, sorry. Did I just short you? I didn't mean to short you.
But Ian got me one year. I got second, and I made sure that wasn't going to happen again.
But of those 4, does one stand out more than others? Like which victory means the most to you and why?
Every one of them has a unique feeling. The first one was like a starstruck feeling, just like unbelievable. Partied till I couldn't even see straight that night and had a hell of a time. And then, and then it felt like leading up to the next one, it was like this feeling of, he was a wild card, he got lucky. Shane didn't get any waves. Greg didn't get any waves, yada, yada, yada. So year 2, I was like, I'm going to prove everyone wrong. Like I'm going to show them. Dropped like a 10 and a 9 and was like, exactly, I was proud of that moment. That was huge for me. And then Ian got me. I got second the year after that. And then the next year, I rode that wave in that first heat. That was probably the biggest, craziest barrel I've ever pulled into. I didn't make. Then Twiggy got that one. I ended up going on to winning the next day when the waves got smaller. One of my best friends, Albie Laird, decided to open his mouth up and talk some trash online, being a controversial win. Maybe Kai Lenny should win because I didn't ride out of my barrel. So forth. That motivated me more than anything ever has. And this year I was like, my visualization and confidence this year was beyond anything. I didn't even know I could get my head into this like world. It was just something else. And I've found where I belong and I found what I wanted. And this last year was probably the special win of my life. I've just losing my mom it took a toll on me and it took a while, and just starting to get an understanding of going back to doing what I love and doing it because she raised me and taught me how to do this. And yeah, this year there's just so many obstacles that I overcame, and just little personal things, family things. A lot of things went through it, and a lot of sacrifices were made. And this year was by far the biggest, most special win of my entire life.
Yeah, your strength and your spirit are inspiring, to say the least. And I want to encourage everyone to check out the WSL docuseries. It's going to be dropping January 2021. And I know you got to get into a little PT, and then you're back off to the island. So enjoy your time on the mainland, and we thank you so much. Speedy recovery, and get back in the water. We'll be watching for you, Billy. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Keep pushing forward and enjoy your day. And aloha.
All right.